He has been described as the father of modern democracy in Kenya, the enigma and Kenya's eternal candidate. To some, he is Baba, and to others, ule mtu wa vitendawili. This man has been at the forefront of historic events like the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution, becoming the first African politician to successfully overturn a presidential election ruling. Today, we'll talk about the Raila figure in the democracy of Kenya, and joining me for this conversation is Bwana Fred Osiro from Kabila la Vijana National Movement. Karibu sana, Bwana Fred.
Thank you
Thank
very
you for
much.
joining us at GBS TV Africa Studios.
Thank you for having me around. Kabila la Vijana is a national youth movement that was founded in 2018. The background of it is that we realize that the young people of this country are being taken advantage of politically, socially, and economically. So therefore, Kabila la Vijana comes in as the third force to emancipate the young people, both politically and economically, and also socially. You know, we realize that after every election, young people do not matter. They are used for political chaos, mayhem, and causing a lot of chaos during the political campaign. But when that is done, nobody cares. So as the Secretary Kabila Vijana, Secretary General, I'm here to actually talk about so many issues, but one most important one is to remind our young people that they should be enlightened, not to be used by the politicians.
So, when you're going back to the topic of today, we've seen Raila putting on different political outfits every cycle. There's been CORD, there's been NASA, and now there was Okoa Kenya back then to support devolution, and there was collection of signatures. And right now we have Azimio La Umoja also collecting signatures. Actually, at yesterday evening, there were 1.2 million signatures collected, and the aim was to impeach the president and to force his hand to repeal the Finance Act 2023. So has there been any tangible results from this camouflage? And would you say it's a political failure on his side because every time it's been changing?
Now, that particular portal is called Tumechoka.
Yes.
I have just signed it, and many millions of Kenyans are actually signing Tumechoka. And before we talk about the fact that Raila is camouflaging, there's reality of our society today. We want to go to the reality that the economy is really scrambling. This government promised us that they are going to work. Immediately they dropped the Bible. What did they promise? That the cost of living is going to go down. So first of all, let's talk about betrayal. And the first betrayal comes from the government of the day. So Raila changing every election year, changing from like you say CORD to NASA to Azimio, is not just because he's a politician. And by the way, the reason why most people have a problem with Raila Odinga is that they don't understand that this man is not just a politician. Raila Odinga is a reformist. Raila Odinga is the father of African democracy. People call him the enigma of African politics, and I would agree with that, because there's no one like Raila Odinga who has actually managed to survive all these political changes and political temperatures from ODM to whatever. So we want to talk about Raila Odinga as a camouflage, not just because of politics. He changes when that need for change arises. And has there been any change that he has actually brought in? So many. Let's talk about constitution. Raila was the person who actually started all this conversation about the 2010 constitution. Have you not seen devolution? We have seen devolution. Have you not seen even recently the government is actually having the position of Prime Minister? Musalia Mudavadi, one of them. This government opposed the 2010 constitution. Their leader, William Samoei Ruto, opposed the 2010 constitution. But now he's enjoying from the fruits of it. So what Raila sees and how he changes is always for the betterment of this country. We may not see what he sees today, but he thinks about the next day, tomorrow and the day after then, and the future generation.
So there have been tangible results from your side.
Of course.
Regimes have come and gone, but Raila has remained a constant and consistent denominator in the opposition politics. So what is his influence in the politics of the day? And if he amasses so much influence, why hasn't he been able to rise to the highest seat?
We have to come to the reality that our politics is riddled with a lot of betrayal, like I mentioned before. You cannot run politics in Kenya, and not just Kenya, any other part of the world, without betrayal as one of the issues that emerge. So Raila is a victim of betrayal, and there's been a lot of talks, silent talks within Azimio, that there were people sabotaging Azimio itself from within. And I don't know how this happens, but every time Raila has a formation of some sort, look at what happened in court. We used to have Wetangula, we used to have Kalonzo Musyoka, and Raila. Those were the principles of court. Then Davadi was not part of it. But after losing, and after trying to make all these constitutional reforms, what happens? they get tired and they move on. The only person who has managed to actually stay with Raila Odinga is Kalonzo Musyoka. But Wetangula has moved on to the other side. He's now actually sleeping with the we call it sleeping with the oppressors as we know them. You know, then moving on to NASA, there was Mudavadi, there was Raila Odinga, there was Wetangula, there were so many other principles, like even this governor for the former governor for Meru,
Yeah.
you know, and then at some point, because people realize that they cannot withstand the politics that Raila does. Raila is not just self-centered. His politics goes beyond losing elections. It is about reforms. So they move on to the next political outfit. Then now comes Azimio. And look at what happens in Azimio. There are people actually in Jubilee who believed in what Raila was actually talking about. Sabina Chege, Kanini Kega, talk about many other leaders, including the former, the governor now of Muranga, Irun Kangata. You know, he believed in the cause. But because the fruit is not bearing itself at this particular moment, they are looking for today.
And is
Raila is doing
is that the problem? Is that the problem in his politics?
the problem I would not call it a problem. Raila knows what he wants. Raila knows where the country needs to go. And for him, patience is a virtue. And so he takes that and moves on with it. But the people who actually join him in this particular train, they get tired and exhausted and they move on. They come in for
Moy era becoming a fierce critic during the Moy era, that is in the 90s,
of course.
to a sympathetic leader with Mwai Kibaki. And now we are going to Ruto, who is actually his political student. These regimes have been here. The patience is what is his influence in politics right now? Does he still have the influence that he amassed before?
If you are asking about the influence Raila has in politics,
Yes.
today on Wednesday, have you seen CBD? I've just come out of that place. Nimetoka CBD Ngikuja, and the city is not as it is because of one man, Raila Odinga. When he calls for demonstrations, people turn up, people show up. But the government is always very insensitive, and so they send police to go and cause chaos and mayhem just to communicate a wrong message about his intentions with the world, with the demonstrations. So this country is at its knees today, not because of Raila Odinga. It is because of the government itself. So when Raila comes out and tries to sort that issue out and rally support for people to actually move on, then now he's termed as backward and all that. So he is an enigma to a point that the country today is not moving. There is no business. I've seen taxi, matatu drivers be going on strike. I have seen even KMPDU, they have actually issued a notice. I've seen even teachers have actually issued a notice. Where was all this coming from? From Raila's conversation that the cost of living is actually very, very unbearable. And so people learn from it and they move on with it and they believe in the fight. So he is an enigma, and his effect must be felt by everyone in this particular country.
Well, Alfred, I want to go back to the influence of Raila on the politics of Kenya.
Yes.
So, why has he failed to become the president, and does he really want to become president of Kenya? Why are his political students coming now to overrun him to be president as he watches?
Raila Odinga's style of politics, we go back there, that Raila Odinga is not just focused on the power. He's not focusing only on the power. He's a politician, yes, and everyone wants power. But when that power that you need stumbles on the rights and the basic tenets of principles of human rights, like people dying because of it, others being frustrated by their regimes, then he takes a pause and says, no, it is not always about me, and it shouldn't just be about me. This reminds me of 2018 when Raila did a handshake with who? With the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta. He did that because he had the interest of Kenyans at heart. It is not just about power at some time. Raila doesn't get to the throne. It is true. Because for him, sometimes the interest of the country comes first. And I bet you, we are here. Probably there's going to be a handshake between Raila and Ruto. I tell you that. Because at some point, it is going to be unbearable. And Raila is going to stoop that low. And he's going to go and reach out and shake the hands of the president. Then in some way, there's going to be a betrayal. And probably when he will want to vie for president, he will not get it. Or he may get it.
You are
so
preempting.
the fact that he's not getting it, actually, I'm telling you the facts. The fact that he's not getting it doesn't mean that he's not actually interested in getting that power. That's the goal of every politician. But sometimes he weighs personal interest against the interest of the country. And that's why he's where he is today. But he's still fighting, isn't he? He's fighting.
So, President Ruto, who was a close ally, has been on record saying, I think even yesterday when he was issuing title deeds to Embakasi ranches, he said that he has asserted on previous occasions, on many occasions, that he knows his tricks and game plan. has this predictability of the former premier atrophied his political muscle? Does it still? What is his track record in making his threats?
You know, William Ruto was a student of Raila Odinga politically.
Yeah.
And before then, there was Moi. All of these politicians have come on, I mean, from Moi. Moi was their father.
Yeah.
Raila was the Secretary General of KANU
Yes.
before he moved on to form his own, to Ford, for example, to form his own particular outfit. Ruto was also youth KANU for whatever, how did they call it, YK92,
Yes.
you know? And so they all have the same style of politics in terms of mass following. That's why Ruto has his own people, Raila has his own people. Ruto has also learned the kind of politics Raila does. And for him, when he says that particular statement, he means this, that Raila, at some point, after exerting a lot of pressure, and that pressure going to the government and being felt by the common man, at some point, this guy is going to feel, to sympathize with the common mwananchi. So Ruto knows that this pressure is just building up. But when it gets serious to a point that people are dying, people cannot go to school, people cannot go to work, people cannot do whatever, then he's going to lay down and then he's going to give way for talks.
What does that say
Ruto is
about
waiting
what does that say about his political muscle then?
You know,
Because if politicians, their high school is to get to the highest seat. So if Raila is sympathizing at this point, what does it say about his political muscle?
because I'll remind you again, the purpose of Kabila Vijana.
Yes.
In Kabila Vijana, we believe in emancipating young people, not just politically, so that we get responsible young people who know the difference between what is right and what is not right. Raila understands that properly.
Yes.
And that's why, as a person, I believe in Raila Odinga's politics. Because at the end of the day, if you remove politics from the equation, we have a country to run here.
Yeah.
We have a country to run. We have economies that needs to be stabilized. We have plans that are supposed to be manifestos that are supposed to be fulfilled.
Yeah.
Raila understood, for example, that Jubilee had Big Four agenda, so he did not trample on that. He came in and brought the BBI, which was going to also help to achieve the Big Four agenda. He
That was ruled
understands,
out as unconstitutional.
of course, but then fast forward, he understands that Kenya Kwanza has the plan.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that he doesn't want that plan to actually succeed. In fact, Raila is actually pushing the government not to forget their plan, quote unquote, that they had promised the common man. So at some point, political interest, for any good leader, political interest must not outweigh the interest of the general public. Raila Odinga is the only politician who understands that. And that is why some say that he's weak. Some say that he doesn't have muscles. Some say that the lion that is now the cat that has been rained on. No, he understands that the common mwananchi who gives powers and who have the power to take are the people that are supposed to be protected. And that's why he fought for the 2020 constitution, which, by the way, enhanced our devolution, created devolution, enhanced the democratic space, and most importantly, has given us the liberty to speak and to air our views without being trampled. So when you actually want to look at the reason why Raila sometimes gives up and lets dialogue to actually take course and everything, I think it is the difference between personalities, personal interest against the general public's interest, and he understands that.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a personal question because it targets Kabila La Vijana National Movement. In the 90s, the youth fought so hard to be heard and during the struggle for political pluralism right now. And we're seeing what is happening with the Jubilee faction in the Azimio constituent parties. And we're looking at the general attitude of young people towards politics and matters of democracy. Has there been a shift in the attitudes of young people and interest in the political landscape, current political landscape that we're in?
So much change. You remember in the 90s, as you put it, we had young people who really wanted to get out the regime that was dictatorial at the particular time out. Remember the Martin Shikukus, you remember the James Orengos, the Raila Odingas, of those days. And again, sorry to say this, but the current president was actually with the dictatorial regime. He was part of the Youth for KANU, 92. You remember that? So those days, the young people had a vision of having a country regardless of their own personal interest. People wanted a country where there is no dictatorship. And everyone, regardless of their political beliefs, they all put that aside. I remember Raila coming up with a national movement that included everyone from whichever side so that they can get Moi out of what? Of power. And the belief of wanting a better future was what brought them together. What belief do our young people have today? The belief that you need to make it, regardless of the means. That's why we have wash wash. That's why we have young people doing all these shoddy businesses. We have, in fact, I teach students and sometimes I ask them questions. What do you think about, I mean, how would you actually approach, I mean, what is your view of success? What do you term success? Students tell me the end justify the means. And sometimes it irritates me, but the reality is that that is what is in everyone's mind.
Yeah.
How we get there, that doesn't matter. How having it is what matters. So our young people are being sidelined politically because when they get into politics, they're either being used to cause chaos. When they actually get a seat at the political table to have a conversation, it is always about what do I get from this. So you find parties bringing in young people, telling them, you know, where tutakupatia hii pesa, where tutakupatia hii pesa, mobilize young people, fanya hivi. Once the election is done, where do they go? Nowhere. Nowhere. They go nowhere. So that's the difference. And that's why Kabila la Vijana comes into to actually do what? To actually emancipate the young people. We want to conduct a national campaign. And by the way, it's coming soon. You need to be looking out. Kabila la Vijana wants to conduct a very powerful national campaign that is going to mobilize the young people of this country, form structures within counties, form structures even as low as the ward level to the national level. We have now branches in Bungoma. We have and being led by our own Swale, who is our national chair in Bungoma. We have a branch in Kisumu, we have a branch in Homa Bay, we have a branch in Nairobi, we have a branch in Nyeri. So we want to extend our scope so that we can actually reach out to many young people and mobilize them and probably educate them about the need for political engagements which actually have a positive impact on our lives.
So in a short, brief sentence, I want you to clarify to our viewers the role the youth should be taking in shaping the politics of this country. Because I was having a conversation a few days ago, and this Wakili said that, you know, public opinion views can be taken in, but they will not always be regarded. So what space should the young people take in shaping the politics of this country at this moment?
First of all, if we need a better society, we need to be involved in what happens. It is very unfortunate that our young people are located somewhere else. They are in IG, for example, doing videos of TikToks and enjoying themselves. There is no problem in that because there is a change in behavior, you know. But for us to have a wholesome change that is going to affect our lives, the young people need to get involved. How do they get involved? They can, for example, run for office. What is making me not to vie for government? By the way, I'll be vying for Senate of Nairobi very soon. You know, so would they need to get involved into politics? You cannot stand aside and say, you know, the government is not doing what's supposed to be doing. The government is doing this, but then you are not getting involved. You know, so we need to be at that particular conversation by getting involved politically. That's number one. Number two, we need to get rid of this culture of handout. And our young people are the ones that are being affected. Because rarely would you see politicians going, for example, to Karen or Westlands and giving handouts. They look for places where people don't have jobs. They look for places where people don't have good livelihood. And then they go there and what do? They give handouts. And once you give a young person a handout, then he's going to sing your name. Sometimes take the handout, but use your common sense that, okay, what is this for? This is actually supposed to be used for development, you know. So young people need to get out from the culture of handouts and the culture of worshipping these politicians. But and I know I'll be accused of speaking my mind, but that is the reality. I feel that I need to stand out and speak the truth, and the truth I speak today is that Raila Odinga is doing the right course. He is fighting for the right things. The people did not vote for him, by the way, are now the ones shouting and saying, oh baba, tunataka utuokoe kwa uchumi. Oh baba, sijui nini imefanyika. Baba, oh sijui ingia, tunakusupport. We do what? But then, you know, Raila is not derailed by all those, you know. He still fights for what he believes is supposed to fight for. And that is what the heart of Raila Odinga is, what every young person needs to have in them. Believing in change and fighting for it, even if you remain alone.
Well, asante sana, Bwana Fred. Well, there you have it, our viewers. And one of the key pointers that Bwana Frederick has been able to enlighten us on is that political muscle of Raila is still strong, and we're looking forward to see how this Azimio collection signatures will play out and the subsequent implications of it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Asante sana.